And I got to say, a lot of people making fun of Jamaal Bowman, saying maybe pulling the fire alarm really did it for him. That could be it. I'm sure there's a lot of people in New York who are.
Of all the things, what it really came down to, single issue voters, they didn't care about a lot of issues. The one thing that they all deeply, deeply were concerned about, did he pull that fire alarm? Because I can't have an elected official who does silly stuff like that, right? Like, ultimately, I mean, it's not the decorum, what's he doing? Can he not read signs?
Your district is D plus 50. Okay, it's like D plus 30. But that means the real race is going to be the primary. So the first thing I want to say is all of you should be focused on your primaries if you are in red or blue areas. AOC was able to defeat a 10-term incumbent? I don't know how many years Crowley was in, but she defeated him. You know what that means? It means that if there is a primary race taking place in your blue area, you can easily win the congressional seat, even if it is, let's say you're like a libertarian, you're more conservative, and you're in a blue area. You only need, let's pull up these numbers so I can show you. You don't actually need that many votes to win, okay? I mean, look, it's not going to be super easy. George Latimer defeats Jamaal Bowman, 44,000 votes. 75,000 votes cast. That is 10%. 10% of the district. That's wild. That means Latimer got like 6 or 7% of available votes. And he won. Now, the reason why this is big news is that Jamaal Bowman is...
Wait, what? No, that's not how you read that.
is a far left squad member, they call him. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez storms out on stage, jumping up and down, yelling, "Let's go, Bronx!" And he lost. AOC could not even rally support for this man. Let's pull up. To be fair, he won the Bronx. Look at that. He got 84% of the Bronx. Only 6,682 votes. Latimer got 1,307. But then there's Westchester County. That's where all the votes actually came in. And that's fascinating. The Bronx is a lot of people. You see how small it is compared to Westchester? But the voter turnout in Westchester was massive for everybody. And that gave Latimer the win. The reason this is big news is many people are saying the Jewish vote is going.
I was like, I wanted to see how wrong he was going to be on his analysis of this. And like, he is not disappointing. We'll watch actual analysis in a couple seconds. Mike is going to break everything down for all of y'all. But yeah, great.
Going to dump the Democratic Party. Bowman ran on this narrative of...
Now, you're wondering, I'm assuming, why is it that someone like Tim Pool is so happy about this? Because if you were watching his tweets, he was actually kind of depressed at first. He was like, he actually tweeted out that Bowman's going to win, AOC is going to win. And then all the replies were like, oh, fuck, how could this happen? Oh, it's all over, blah, blah, blah. And this is all MAGA, groypers, white supremacists, neo-reactionaries, Christian nationalists, all in his replies. You can just tell, like, Groyper Daddy 88 is really upset about this. But why? Why would all of the people who are pretty anti-Semitic themselves or are just MAGA Trump supporters, why are they all excited about Latimer? That's unusual. That I don't even understand why they're concerned about this race. At the end of the day, to them, shouldn't it just be, well, I mean, just one of two Democrats is going to be the Democrat that is going to have to face off eventually against a Republican at some point or another, right? So ultimately, yeah, it's a primary, but, fight amongst yourselves.
Anti-Israel, anti-AIPAC, and, pro-Palestine. And for this, he is out of Congress. They're saying that he's the first Democrat to be ousted. We're now getting reporting that Cori Bush, another squad member, may be ousted. So these are the far leftists. And I got to say, a lot of people making fun of Jamaal Bowman, saying maybe pulling the fire alarm really did it for him. That could be it. I'm sure there's a lot of people in New York who are...
Of all the things, what it really came down to, single issue voters, they didn't care about a lot of issues. The one thing that they all deeply, deeply were concerned about, did he pull that fire alarm? because I can't have an elected official who does silly stuff like that, right? Like ultimately, I mean, it's not decorum. You know, what's he doing? Can he not read signs? Does he not know? You know, so I think it really came down to that. It was the fire alarm. That's probably what had the most influence on this particular election.
Pulled a fire alarm. How embarrassing. He pulled the emergency signs off the door, pulled the fire alarm. Why? And then lied about it. Well, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to give a shout out to AOC, who rallied for Bowman, and he lost.
Are you serious? Is this how you're going to do shit? Because at the end of the day, I mean, you would have a lot of coverage of Trump. The curse of Trump, the Trump fucking candidates. Like, everyone thought all these extremist candidates that Trump was backing, Kerry Lake style, you know, were all, oh, they were just going to sweep every single time. It's like, oh, here comes the Midas touch. Trump's coming along. He's endorsing yet another candidate. They're sure to win. Everyone is just all pro MAGA now. And it's like defeated. But at the end of the day, like, the memes are fun, sure. That's not what it's coming down to, though. It's not that AOC, you know, trying to promote Jamaal Bowman and being, in your eyes, cringe. She was so cringe that may have swayed the election. I think, you know, most voters, they were on the fence. Who do I pick? I'm not entirely sure. But then I saw that rally, and I was like, that is kind of cringy. I don't know. And then, oh, yeah, the fire alarm. Can't forget about that one, too.
People are sick of the far left garbage. You know, I was saying this yesterday before Timcast IRL to Amy, who was coming on. I was like,
so here's the thing. Americans, when you look at actual issues, right, the whole country suddenly on paper starts to look a lot more progressive or leftist than you may have thought previously. It depends how you word things, right? If you ask voters as they're doing exit polls in the US, hey, by the way, are you for the idea of there being some kind of a universal healthcare system so that people who need it can have healthcare at any given time without having to pay out of pocket, something like a system similar to, say, other countries that have successfully pulled that off? You'll get a yes, right? Should people have things like higher education so that we can have more doctors and nurses and engineers? Should that be out of pocket? Should people be paying for that? It's when you word things completely differently, like, hey, should you have to subsidize the welfare state so that illegal immigrants can come into the country and live off your tax dollars? Well, I would be hard-pressed to say that if you worded a sentence like that, you're not going to get a lot of Americans who are like, that thing, that's the thing I'm looking for. Of course not. But when it comes down to like basic human decency, yeah, not everyone wants to just revel in the suffering of the poor or revel in the suffering of people who are having trouble making ends meet, shit like that.
Matt Gaetz is our favorite member of Congress. He's basically like the mirror image of AOC, right?
Oh, so I guess AOC is not a pedophile then.
What I mean by that is it looks the same in some ways, but it's flipped. Matt Gaetz.
So one may be a human trafficking pedophile, Matt Gaetz, and then the other one is not that. Yeah, okay. I guess I'd support AOC in this.
Raises money from small donors in his district, and that empowers him. He's not beholden to big lobbyists, corporations, PACs, or any of that.
How much of the money comes directly from the human trafficking itself, though, or how much of the money comes from the drug sales, allegedly? But that's something to look into. If that's possibly what's helping fund some of his projects.
He's got people who believe in him and give him money. AOC does too, but AOC is a liar, an ideologue, manipulative, and all of that stuff. And Matt Gaetz stands on principle. The media smears him and complains, but I put it this way. You know, I'm a middle of the road kind of guy, and I'm watching the news and I'm like, oh, look, a thing. Let's fact check a thing. I'll give you an example. Last night, this is so frustrating. At like 8:50, all of these Twitter accounts are saying Bowman is lost. And I was like, whoa, big news. Bowman's lost. There's no sources anywhere. Somebody made it up. They made it up. And so then I'm just like, God.
I mean, that's pretty much your entire show. So a lot of people were already pointing out, I think, previous to this, and this is not like the left having supernatural powers or anything. If you were to look at the polls, it was showing that, Jamaal Bowman was pulling far behind his competitor, where there were multiple different organizations in the form of super PACs, some of whom were from the same funding sources, that were pouring millions and millions of dollars, the most expensive primary race in U.S. history, into George Latimer's campaign. And again, a lot of this comes from AIPAC funding, which this is something that it baffles me, in that if Russia or China or even Uruguay, you know, precious Uruguay, if any of them was suddenly boasting that they had some kind of foreign influence on elections in the United States, if they had like, hey, our organization is to make sure that there are pro-Russian and pro-Putin interest candidates that get elected in U.S. elections. That's what our organization is all about. We pour as much money as we can that comes from, yes, Russian oligarchs, oil money, all that kind of stuff. We pour millions of dollars into U.S. elections to make sure that a pro-Russian candidate defeats the non-pro-Russian candidate. And that's what we're all about, and we're proud of this, and we're actually going to advertise this publicly and announce it and accept praise for this. And we're also going to publicly gift. We're going to gift a lot of candidates vast sums of money. And then that money is going to be publicly available for anyone who wants to see it. And then when those candidates win, we're going to boast about those victories. That would be wild if it was done on the behalf of another country. When it's done on the behalf of Israel, it's just so normalized. Like, just again, there's not even a sense of America being upset by this, or possibly like, isn't that foreign interference, though, just to stack the deck with all of the politicians consistently that you know will exclusively vote in favor of the interests of Israel, allow you to keep shipping arms to Israel, shipping bombs, defense systems, sending military aid, sending financial aid. We're talking billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars all the time so that they can do a genocide. Funding them to do a genocide. That genocide would not be possible without the U.S., TM. It's made possible with American bombs and weapons and weapon systems and weapon and missile guidance system, all that stuff. If it wasn't for America, they would not be able to do a genocide. And that's pretty fucked up, let alone boasting about it, you know? And Americans not being more upset about that, you'd think? Trump ally Laura Loomer says racist slurs at Jamaal Bowman. What a surprise. She's a massive ass racist.
And as I posted today on Twitter, I'm sure you saw, I mean, there was a story that broke the other day, and I was just reminding people posting the FEC receipts.
I can't make it louder if you're wondering why it's so quiet. It's unfortunately the Media Matters media player. But I'll tell you this. It's better. It's better this way. It's better that she's not as loud as possible.
Jamaal Bowman actually has been sending his campaign funds to pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian PACs as payment for staff time. So, you know.
How does that work? So Jamaal Bowman has been sending his own campaign funds that I assume comes from fundraising into other super PACs for Hamas, even though Hamas doesn't have any kind of representation in the United States or politicians. How does Hamas, I don't get, how do they get the money? Like, if you put it into the super PAC has to spend all that money then on a political candidate or a policy or something in that regard. Advertising, buttons, campaigns, posters. How does like, I don't get where Hamas gets the cash. Wouldn't it be like more sensible just to be like Jamaal Bowman literally hands money to Hamas? Or is that just like too brazen a lie that people will catch you?
Oh, these violent Palestinians that you see out in the streets, these same types of people that are out near the synagogues in Los Angeles attacking Jews. Well, it seems to be that those are the same types of people who Jamaal Bowman is actually paying for staff time. Here's the receipt. We pulled it up. It's a PAC States Congress. It's, I don't know. It's just mind-blowing to me. It's offensive, not just as an American, but also just as a Jew. I just find this to be totally out of control. And he represents Westchester. I used to live in Westchester. You know how many Jews live in Westchester County in New York? I used to live there when I worked for Project Veritas. That's where Project Veritas is headquartered. It's headquartered out of Westchester County. The fact that this ghetto-ass, you know, Ebonics-speaking, Jew-hating animal is...
Holy shit. Wow. Yeah. I gotta admit, I don't have much of a bar when it comes to Laura Loomer. She is like just a disgusting racist piece of shit, but I didn't know she felt that comfortable being that brazen on her show to her audience. And there you have it. Yeah. I've said before, too, it's really gross that the far right, they've become so normalized at, like, just, again, being overt racists. You were raised to think that a racist was going to be some old white person, you know, walking on the street saying the N-word or not allowing black people to eat in his restaurant and things like that. And it's like, well, no, there's just so many layers of just embedded and baked in racism in all of us, just society-wide, that we're all trying to unpack. But they're going back to the good old days, you know, where like again, if a Charlie Kirk or Laura Loomer were hosting a radio show, and in that radio show we're saying, by the way, I'm not a racist, but I wouldn't fly on a plane if the pilot is black. I'll be honest with you. I mean, nothing against black folk. I'm just saying, at the end of the day, it's my life. I gotta be careful. And honestly, only white people know how to fly planes. That's just the unfortunate reality. And people who are non-white, they get hired because of DEI or something else, and that's why they get the jobs. It's the same thing. None of them have ever earned anything in their lives. Wait, that sounds racist. Okay, sorry. Pick yourself up by your bootstraps, and DEI bridge Sweet Baby Inc. And now that they just do that. That's just every single right-wing commentator now. They just casually are just saying shit like that. It can be some of the grossest, most disgusting shit you've ever heard, and it's just normalized. It's just like, oh yeah, this is we're not putting on airs anymore. We don't have to pretend. We're Nazis, and we're kind of proud of that.
Well, friends, I unfortunately have some really devastating breaking news. Jamaal.
To be clear, by the way, I was expecting this. I was watching, the election and the results pour in yesterday. And yes, based on, again, the polls, usually a 20-point lead, if it was in one single poll, that might in and of itself be something that could be an aberration or something. We don't know what the polling method was, what the sample size was, etc. If there are multiple polls showing anything from between, a 15-point to a 17-point, and in some cases a 20-point lead for a candidate, typically, I mean, when you're seeing multiple polls saying that, at the end of the day, it does usually mean that there's not a very large chance. Now, based on the polling, I would say the results actually were better than what some of the polls were indicating. This was not a 20-point blowout by any stretch. But yes, of course, Latimer did win. And it did come down to, in this case, yes, approximately in the range of about 10,000 votes, 10,000 people, which means that it is still capable of being a contest that could have been won. There's a lot of factors in play. I'm sure Mike's going to describe them and go into them in detail. But there has to be, at this point, a lot of strategy. And I mean this just almost exclusively amongst the left. People need to start deciding what their goals, aims, and aspirations are, even on an individual level. Not even on an organized level, even on an individual level. A lot of people need to start coming to terms with, what are my aims in what I'm doing and putting out there on a repeated basis. It can be anything from my social media posts, to my activism, to my direct action, to my protesting, to my donations, to if I am going to volunteer my own time, which is, yes, hours of unpaid labor, to a political candidate. Are you going to be doing it to someone who is going to represent your beliefs, and someone who's going to be able to justify the amount of hours that you're going to put in on your end in order to try and prop them up and get them elected? Are you going to be able to, again, sway opinions, change minds? Are you going to be able to get more people on board with the action or the course or the route that you're going down? What is your goal? If someone is like, hey, by the way, my goal is to end the genocide in Gaza as quickly as possible, and to not only stop that, but then to, after that, work on a free Palestine that is internationally recognized, and the right of return for all Palestinians to return to their stolen land and their homes, and there to be no more violence between Israel and Palestine, the territories that they are occupying. If that's your goal, and you have these two candidates, yes, one of those two candidates, Jamaal Bowman, had a history in the past of supporting Israel publicly, and then went on the trip to Israel. After he went on that trip to Israel, he recognized the system of apartheid that was taking place. After learning that, he completely changed the way that he spoke about that issue and his advocacy in regards to, yes, this is a human rights issue at its very core, and I cannot, in good conscience, support the actions, even though I've been raised my entire life to believe a certain way, as all of us have if you live in the West, in the idea that this is the one democracy in the Middle East, that it is the only bastion of civilization in a world otherwise surrounded by barbarism, all of these, backwards, undeveloped countries, all surrounding Israel, all trying to destroy Israel because they're all deeply anti-Semitic and hate Jewish people, and that's why they're doing it. And otherwise, this bastion, this shining light in the middle of all this darkness, is capable of, again, allowing America and Israel to maintain peace and order in the world, and that's just the way that we're all brought up to believe. And it's a lie. It's a horrifying lie that, as we're now seeing, all of the elements of it are crashing down, burning in real time. every single time we turn on our phones or computers. It doesn't take much, it doesn't take a lot of timeline scrolling, but when you hear the screams of a little girl being burnt to death alive in a fire where she was struck, being told it was a safe area to be, and the screams of her parents as they watched their own child die before them, as I had to do in that latest clip that's going around, then yeah, all the semblance of everything that is necessary to maintain this moral order evaporate. Like, you can't, in good conscience, you can't have, and this is one of the biggest enemies of fascism, empathy as a person, and see what is going on and still believe the narrative that this is necessary. It's like, yes, I understand, you have to get it though, war is ugly. If you don't understand, like, there are, again, no one wants kids to die or suffer or starve, but it's necessary, again, to defeat the ultimate evil, which is Hamas. And once Hamas is defeated, everything can go back to normal and we can have brunch again. So that's why it's ugly for right now, and I agree with you. It's not ideal. It's not exactly something I'm particularly happy about, but it is necessary. And this necessary evil is necessary, sorry, not evil, good to maintain the social order. The whole masquerade of this, it's gone. You know, especially for younger generations. This is the reason they want to fucking ban TikTok. They think, oh, this will stop it. This will stop people learning about all the evil we do. And then it's like, no, you bet so wrongly for so long. You spent so much time allowing all of these massive corporations that had monopolies to corrupt the system, to influence politics, and to stop you from consistently doing what you should have done for generations, which is apply antitrust laws to big tech. You should have been doing that. You didn't. Big tech has been able to maintain their monopolies. It's only about a small five or six companies that control the majority of our consumption of the internet. And these 5 or 6 companies, well, they're all in competition with one another. And in order to defeat one another, they're going to have to find out the way to keep us using their particular sites of the internet the longest possible. The apps on our phones, the websites we like to go to. How do we do that? Well, let's weaponize our AI to continue to make people more engaged. How do we get them engaged? Incendiary content. The emotion of anger seems to really work well. Let's do that. Whoa, there's a pandemic. People are going inside. They're spending more time indoors than ever before. Now they're consuming all of their stuff, all of their media off their phones, their internets, their TVs, and now we really get to tinker with their brains and see what it's like when someone goes from maybe using social media for 1 hour a day to 3 hours a day. What happens when all we do all day is stay indoors because there's a pandemic, and then we have our brains manipulated by these AIs, and we're using them for hours and hours and hours, and we're searching for those likes and clicks and likes and clicks, and we're hunting for them, and we need them, and we need them more and more because we don't get the same fix from those likes and clicks that we used to. We're jonesing. We don't get that wonderful feeling I got from 5 likes. I need 10 likes now. 10 likes doesn't do it. I need 12. I need 20. I need 100 likes on my post, or something's wrong. Something is wrong. Am I ugly? Am I fat? Did I screw up? Why isn't everyone liking this post the way they like this last post? Am I shadow banned? Is this part of a conspiracy? I don't know. But this being done over and over. And they set this all up to a point now where, yeah, everyone's addicted to social media. You won. You got our brains, our eyes, our consumption. And then guess what? Right now, social media, even with your best efforts to block, ban, or stop any information coming out, is flooding the world with horrors and atrocities, because horrors and atrocities are being committed with US tax dollars. And that reality is an opening up to all the other realities. The cobalt in our phones coming from the Congo, the genocide in Myanmar, the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan, the humanitarian crisis in Syria, the humanitarian crisis in Ukraine, in Uganda, in Haiti. It's like all of a sudden everyone is like, oh man, why is it that all these things, how did they happen? What's interconnected here? What caused them? What's the reason? Why are there some countries that seem to be suffering so immensely when we in the West love this incredible quality of life and surplus of consumer goods made to us cheaply and delivered from China? Why doesn't everyone have this? What's going on here? It's all a lie. Oh, so our incredible consumer wealth and enjoyment comes at cost. I just didn't know the cost. See, I bought into that whole thing where you told me that a lot of those other countries, they're uncivilized. They're barbarous. They're monstrous. They treat women poorly. They believe in Islamic jihad. They're again backwards. And it's Western nations that were superior, civilized, and necessary in order to maintain and control the world. Because if not for the West, well then all of the world would fall into darkness, and we can't have that. So it's really good that we maintain the West and the social order and the system as planned. And then you see at what cost now, right? Now, especially for younger generations, they're able to go on their phones, and when they listen to the screams, again, of that little girl burning to death and seeing the parents of that girl having to witness that in real time and try and think, is this the world I live in? Well, then it doesn't make sense anymore. You know, the whole mystique, the whole illusion, it's shattered.
Howdy, everybody. I just wanted to let you know that for the cost of a cup of coffee, you can unlock bonus uncensored episodes of Mind Explosions by going to patreon.com/theserfs. Our videos couldn't exist without your support, and all our content is released early to our Patreon subscribers, as well as a ton of extra content you can't get anywhere else. Please like, subscribe, and thumbs up this channel. And if you're feeling extra perky, share it anywhere you think people would like to see or learn from our videos. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We first want to give a shout out to everyone who makes this show possible. This program is produced thanks to the generous support of our Patreon supporters: Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbar Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multi Mondi, Omni, Peanut Butter Blondie, Political Poppy, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Richard Bomey, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Ruby, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demmel, Travis McClinton, and Words Greenwood, as well as every other person you see on the screen right now. This show would not be possible without them. And if you want to join these wonderful people who make this entire program possible, simply go to patreon.com/theserfs and you can unlock uncensored and bonus episodes and, you know, help us exist.